So now, how does this Nicolaitane doctrine live and breathe among us today? Well, you have it in several areas, and we're almost done here. You have it in several areas. You have it in leaders who manipulate the people of God. Now, what do I mean by that? Oh, you know what I mean? You're not confused? They're conquering the people. How do they do that? They teach the people to be men pleasers instead of God pleasers. And what does that do? That puts you in a position to be conquered. That puts you in a position to be controlled. Because see, if I can get you to please me, to think that pleasing me is what pleases God, then anything I tell you, you'll agree with that. You understand what I'm saying? So what they're preparing you for is the new order, the new world order. This one world church, this one world government, all of this stuff. It's all connected. You've been infiltrated. You better open your eyes. It's all connected. And it's easy to do. Let me tell you why it's easy to make people do what you want them to do as a pastor. Because people look at the pastor as God. He ain't God. You understand what I'm saying? People are looking at him as he's in charge. He's an under shepherd. God is in control of this whole thing. Yeshua is above him, and he has to answer to them. He's not in charge. I mean, I've had pastors literally come up to me and say things like, I had this one pastor, I was leaving the ministry because God was sending me somewhere else. And I mean, I was being really respectful. In my ignorance, I decided I was going to let him know I was leaving and where I was going and what I was doing. And even the pastor that was bringing me over to assist him in ministry wrote a letter, the whole nine. So I'm trying to get in touch with this pastor. Understand, this is a pastor that I'm in constant contact with. I can call his house and talk to him and his wife directly at the crib. Okay? And hold conversations. But now all of a sudden, because I'm telling you I'm getting ready to leave, now you're avoiding me. You don't want to accept my faxes. You don't want to talk to me. You don't want to accept my phone calls. You're avoiding me. But you step up to me in the hallway at service right before you go on into ministry. You put your finger in my face and say, I have not released you. That's insanity. You don't need to release me. If God has called me to do something and he's telling me to do it, I have to obey God rather than man. It's not about you being the Lord over my life. It's about him being Lord and about the ministers of God teaching people to follow God. Yeah, you remember Paul said, follow me as I follow Christ. Now, outside of that, ain't nothing but garbage. That's false authority. That's false leadership. You follow what I'm saying? And that's what these ministers of today, this clergy of today has taken on themselves. They are treating themselves as God. Look at the Pope. Look at Catholicism. These cats are truly presenting themselves like they're God and everybody is underneath them and everybody has to follow their rulership and authority. No, they don't. We follow the rulership and authority of God. Everything else is false. It's false authority. If it is not connected, if you are not hearing from God. See, here's the thing. If the preacher was hearing from God, he would know what God called me to do and what God was telling me to do. Follow me? But because he's not connected, he's standing in my face with his finger in my face, standing with me toe to toe. I have not released you. That's some foolishness. That ain't God. But it's easy to do because people are seeking acceptance. You know what I'm saying? It's easy to control people because they seeking acceptance. They don't understand that they've already been accepted. Yeshua died on the cross and accepted you. All you have to do is receive his acceptance. But instead of that, you'd rather serve your false gods. You'd rather create men as gods. You'd rather worship them and do all the things that are, exciting to your flesh. Idolatry and sexual immorality, all that stuff that pleases and pleasures you, you'd rather do that. So it separates you from God. So therefore you have no other alternative but to be controlled of men. And that's the whole point. Okay? What's another way that the Nicolaitane doctrine lives and breathes among us today? Through government. That's what I said. Through government and the powers that be. It's all connected. I keep telling you that. What's this life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that they put down on paper a long time ago, back in 1776? What is this? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What's that? It's another attempt to take your mind off of who God is, because there is no life except for in God. There's not true life because you don't have truth. There is no liberty. There is no happiness. There's no joy. None of that outside of him. But you can pursue these things and never attain them. You can attain things that seem to be a resemblance of, but they always crumble. So no different than this whole American dream. What's the American dream? Apple pie, baseball, hot dogs, what? I don't know. You tell me. What's the American dream? Whatever it is, it's an American nightmare now because we have 1.2 million people out of work in 3 months in this country. 3 months, 1.2 million people have lost their jobs. That is not to mention the people that are temporarily laid off. That's not to mention the people who have part-time jobs that still can't afford to pay their bills. That doesn't even include those people. Not to mention, do we have 31.6 million people on food stamps? What is this? This is an attempt to control the people. So you know what they tell you? They tell you, okay, I'm going to educate you. I'm going to give you this. This is what you need. You need a job. You need to be a good little slave. You need to do this way. And you need to do that way. And I'm going to give you. If you do this, then I'll do that. The spirit of the Nicolaitanes, the doctrine, their deeds. In action, in live and living color. So now because you're part of my system and because you did the things I told you to do, you're a nice little slave, I'm going to give you food stamps. But what happens when they cut that off? What happens when they jack the food up so bad you can't even eat it? What happens? See, you're controlled. You're manipulated. What do? They get all your information. What size drawers did your great grandmama wear? All of that stuff. They need to know all this information, your whole life story. In order to help you. That's not the spirit of God. That's not how God operates. That's the spirit and the doctrine and the deeds of the Nicolaitanes. He doesn't need to know all that. When he blessed people, how many people followed him? Multitudes of people. He didn't sit around, you know what? I am Yeshua. I'm the Son of God. You guys should feed me. No, he said, you know what? I've been teaching these people. They've been following me. Sit them down. And the disciples flipping like, man, how are we going to feed these people? Don't worry about that. I got this. He's feeding 4,000, 5,000 here, 4,000 there with baskets of food left over. You follow me? It wasn't about him. It was about him sacrificing for you. It was about you. That's what he believed. That's how he showed his fruit. But what is the Nicolaitane doctrine? What are their deeds? It's all about them. Okay? So the media, that's another way that the Nicolaitane spirit lives and breathes among us. They proliferate their garbage and their propaganda throughout the media. I don't care if it's radio. I don't care if it's television. It could be not just secular television, but quote unquote Christian television. It's all garbage. It's all garbage. It's all proliferating lies. So you have to pick and choose what you watch. And if you're watching TV or you have children, you better be sitting down watching what you're watching with them so that if it's jacked up, you can explain what's going on. Don't just sit your children in front of the television and let the television watch them. Don't give them that kind of freedom in front of the internet, on the internet. Don't do that because you're setting them up to be conquered. And that's what's going on in this society. People have been conquered. They're controlled. They've allowed the deeds of the Nicolaitanes. They've allowed that doctrine. That doctrine is controlling them. And it's proliferated in the mass media on all levels through their different philosophies. Well, this is what we believe. There are many ways to get to God. Oh, and over here you hear this, and over here you hear that. You got some stuff that's subtle, and then you got stuff that's blatant. Okay, so you have subtle humanism, you have subtle feminism, but you have this blatant homosexuality just blam right in your face. But that's because you've been desensitized, because you've been conquered already and you've been controlled for so long. So now you're desensitized. So when you see a blatant fag on your television screen, it's like, oh, look, they fell in love. Are you crazy? You better wake up. You better open your eyes. You've been infiltrated. You understand what I'm saying? The Nicolaitanes got you. You got to open your eyes. Okay. What happens here? When you allow all of these influences, I'm not done. I mean, we got education. We got a number of things here. Education, whether it's secular or spiritual. Secular education is just as bad. Spiritual education is, or quote unquote, I should say, spiritual education is just as bad as secular. It's all infiltrated. The garbage is on all fronts. They've got a targeted agenda. It's being controlled from the top down, period. Fraternities, all these little niceties that they try to give you, these secret societies. It's garbage. It's all garbage. But you got all these quote unquote Christians who are in fraternities.